Bam! Just like that, I'm back in the stand. That's what I'm calling it from now on, the stand. Back in the stand. Back in the Canada stand. Just like that, flick of the fingers. Damn it. But anyway, what am I going to do today? I'm in no rush. Sarah's not even home. She won't be home for another 10 days or something, so all I have to do is I got a little appointment this afternoon here on the mainland, British Columbia, and then get that done. Make my way to the ferry, sit on the boat, and go home and get mauled by my dog. So I'm in no panic. Thought I'd make a quick video while I'm here. And quick note. Remember I found that perfect snake skin with like the mouth, the lips, and the eyes and the whole 9 yards? The very first day I got to Alabama. I'm like, I wonder if I get this home. Made it, check it out. So, I'm right by the airport, so if you hear loud jets, that's why. So I thought, I wonder if this is crumbly. And I gently coiled it up, very gently, and I put it inside one of my boots. I had 2 pairs of boots I brought. Made it back for the man cave. How cool is that? Look at that sucker. Oops, hold on. You can't even see that. Oh, the up. Uh-oh, where's his head? Oh, that's his head. Whoa. There. Look at that. Look at his eyeball. Weird. There you go. Another cool addition to the man cave. As long as I don't... Well, I'm not home yet, right? But anyway, so many kind comments from all of the people in the world, my neighbors. Holy cow. Very kind, warm, inviting. Family members, right? Everybody here is a friggin'... We're all family. But what a bunch of kind people. My neighbors to the south. If I could have even one of you as a full-time neighbor, the place, my whole world would be better off. Not that I have bad neighbors, I got great neighbors, but I'm telling you, when you entertain the thought of maybe moving to another country, and it sounds like the whole country is going, get down here! It feels pretty good. Really good. Plane going by out the window. But anyway, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was looking at real estate last night for a couple hours. Now, moving along. Appreciate it. All of you are so appreciated. I wish I could just come and hang out with every one of you right now. Now, how am I going to do this? Just a second. Now, the Texas information hasn't slowed since I went and visited, and everybody, it seems, in Texas chimed in and still chiming in. And somebody sent me a screenshot of a newspaper article, okay? See that? This is the newspaper is Around East Texas. Stories from Polk County Publishing Co. Now, I was trying to figure out how I could read this smoothly or copy it. I tried when I was on the plane, nothing else to do. Tried copying and pasting the text, which you can from a photograph on your iPhone. And it wasn't working out because of the ripples in the newspaper itself. So I think I can read this smoothly. I haven't read the whole thing. I read a bit. Now listen to this. Now, this is from a lady, journalist, who sounds like a brave, honest person for considering journalists are basically mainstream, right? And I wonder if maybe possibly I'll email her and see if she wants to come on here and talk to us about what she has discovered. Plain. Now listen to this. And she went public with this, all right? So that's bravo, kudos for her. But listen. This is titled Bigfoot Out and About in San Jacinto amid COVID. Recent sightings reported by 3 San Jacinto County residents. COVID-19 has covered the front page of newspapers across the country. It has, however, not stolen the thunder of one of San Jacinto County's most popular residents, Bigfoot. Yes, Bigfoot. Recently, I was contacted by a good friend who also happens to be a detective nearby. Normally, our conversations start out with basic information and facts revolving around a crime or crash. Not this time. I picked up my cell phone to answer his call, which came at approximately 2:30 a.m. I answered, still halfway asleep, to hear my detective friend ask me what I was doing. Fishing. I was fishing. Excuse me, I quipped back with more sarcasm than I intended. What do you think I was doing? Is something wrong? Are you okay? Wait, did something happen to my kids? Excuse me. Wait, did something happen to my kids, mother, sister, husband, dog? I quickly did a brief checklist in my head to ensure myself that all was right in my world. Mom's at home. My sister is somewhere with her new boyfriend. My children are asleep in my bed with me, which means my husband is somewhere in my house after being booted out of the bed by our children, who, although at 18 and 19 years of age, insist on piling up in my bed because it's more comfortable. I glanced down at the floor, and there was my dog beside him. I glanced down at the floor, and there was my dog, and beside him was my husband, wrapped in a My Little Pony blanket on the floor. Side note, I need to take a photo of him and the macho blanket he is covered with in case anyone should ever doubt his manliness. Okay, mental checklist, done. I caught my breath. No one been hurt, died, or required any type of medical attention, so what now? Quote, why are you calling me this late? Twice I asked. The story he relayed to me could best be described as, well, never mind. There is no description for something like this. Now I'm going to be a little challenged because the text is chopped off. You see that in the bottom corner by my thumb here? I have to. Law enforcement officers have a special place in my heart. I like the mind of investigator. I like how they look at the facts, not the emotion in any given situation. This is a very valuable trait, especially in my line of work. All right, I think I filled in the blanks good there. Top of the next run. I have always looked to police officers, FBI agents, and investigators when I had things I could not make sense of. I have a deep respect for them most of the time. My hero officer began to tell me a story that if was relayed to me by any other individual, I would not believe. I'll spare you the mundane details and get right to it. Apparently, two men that are both high in authority within law enforcement circles decided to take a drive down some country back roads. It was a quiet night, and the two men just wanted to enjoy the brief reprieve from bad guys before beginning their reports. Quote, Andrea, listen to me. You know me, right? He said. Yes, I replied. You know I always tell you the truth, right? Mm-hmm, I replied. Note to self, this is not going to be good when a police officer begins a conversation with you like the one above. It is never good. Excuse me, just had breakfast. The Cliff Notes version of what happened is as follows. Decorated veteran officers looking for a peaceful ride in the country since there are no donut shops nearby. Decorated veteran officers grab a cup of coffee and pile into one of the unmarked SUVs and hit the road. Officers hang a left turn off the main road to make a drive down a dirt road nearby. As they make their way down the dirt road, traveling deeper into the thicket, the driver can see the form of what appears to be something crossing the road. Something big. My thoughts immediately went to whoever was crossing the road. The officer who was driving said, "You don't have the luxury of thinking that the form was anything good once you have been in this business long enough." Immediately my thoughts went to drugs, kidnapping, a robbery, or worse. There was no reason that anyone should be out on that road at that time of night, and alone at that. Plain. With their radars and keen sense of danger now on high alert, the two men looked at each other, and without saying a word, they both began filing every detail of what they saw, heard, and felt into a mental lockbox. My partner and I have worked together for over 10 years, one officer told the San Jacinto News. Sorry. We know each other's actions and even expressions. And when I looked at my partner, I knew our evening was about to get crazy. and crazy is putting it mildly. As they approached the area, when they initially saw whoever or whatever it was cross the road, the hairs on the back of their necks stood up. I call it FBC, or full body chills. The partner, who is in the passenger side, said, "It's a sixth sense that we all have." It is a strange feeling of being on edge and calculating every step and every move. It is scary. And if any member of law enforcement tells you that they do not get scared, then they do not need to be in this line of work. Fear keeps you alive. It had only been approximately 15 to 20 seconds prior when the men had witnessed what they described as a really tall man dart across the road into the woodline. As they got closer, there was no sign of anything or anyone. As both men began to take a collective deep breath of relief, their air was once again stolen when they stepped outside of the SUV. I feel like I should give you a rundown of my education and training before I tell you what happened next. I have seen a lot in my time in law enforcement, as has my partner, he said. We've always been able to connect the dots and timeline of a crime or a case based on evidence, and that's what we rely on. But in this case, I don't even know where or how to begin. The investigator sat across from me in a conference room at the station. Until this moment, they both had been at ease, maybe a little apprehensive, but nothing out of the ordinary. It was when they reached this point in their tale that everything changed. Both officers began to show unmistakable signs of anxiety and unrest. One began tapping his leg up and down rapidly. His face turned that shade of red that a person only gets when he or she is facing a frightening or embarrassing situation. The second officer, who up until moments ago, there's a fold in the paper, had something like total fold in the newspaper, can't read that sentence. I think he meant had been relaxed, began clicking his pen up and down, and eventually began to pace around the conference room. Just like police officers are taught to read body language, journalists, like myself, are trained in the same manner. It becomes second nature. Hold on, let me zoom in on the next column. To rely on a person's actions rather than their words. And what I was witnessing in front of me was textbook fear and anxiety. Up until this moment, I'd been relaxed, but as the officers began to tell me the rest of the story, I too began to fall victim to the pen clicking and leg shaking. The seasoned officers began to tell me how they were getting back into the cab of the SUV. They both heard what can only be described as a primal scream. It gave me chills, and for me to get chills, that's saying something, the officer said. The two men explained that they began taking steps backward toward the pickup and heard the scream even louder. Being a career law enforcement officer, I knew no one was going to believe me, so I grabbed my phone and hit record. I was able to capture whatever the heck this thing was on audio as it screamed, he said. The officer allowed me to listen to whoever or whatever was making the sound, and as long as I have been in this business, there isn't a lot I haven't heard that I could not pinpoint the source. Well, make that journalist 0 something scarier than fiction 1. As we continue talking and trying to find a rational explanation of what would make that kind of sound, the officers continued their story. We made it back to the vehicle, and by this time, we had one goal: to get the heck out of there. We both climbed into our seats and were preparing to get out of Dodge when we heard that scream again. This time it was louder, closer, and sounded as if it would shatter glass. I began to back up and turn around. The road we were traveling on was narrow, and it took some skill for me to maneuver without ending up in a ditch. And as I backed up and got us going in the right direction, plane. As I backed up and got us going in the right direction, I saw it. We saw it, the detective said. Both men agreed that as they were trying to turn around and leave, the headlights of their vehicle shined on what could only be called a Sasquatch, or better known as Bigfoot. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, and if you print my name in this article, I'd have no choice but to call you a liar. The detective laughed uneasily. The partner, who had not said much until this moment, made eye contact with me and described, hold on, gotta go up at the top again, and described the creature as being approximately 7 feet tall, long arms, broad shoulders, and strong. Does not sound too bad. That is until he proceeded with his description of the creature. Quote, he was hairy. He was covered from head to toe with a dark grayish colored hair. His features looked like they had been etched out with a chisel. He had a sharp jawline, and he was just so big. I've seen criminals, I've seen gorillas, I've seen everything in between, but I cannot say that I have ever encountered anything like this before, explained the second officer. The two men both recalled that one of the most fearful traits of the creature were that he had yellow eyes. His eyes just poured into you. One said, that is the only way I know how to describe it. It took only seconds for the creature to disappear into the thick wilderness. He was there, and then he was gone, just like that. You would think something as large as this was would not be able to move quickly, but he literally soared. I watched him take no more than 2 or 3 steps, and he was gone. After hearing the officer's tale and listening to it again, I began to dig into the local history of San Jacinto County and its elusive primate. Over the past 70 years, I've come across numerous articles of residents who have come face to face with the creature. Although each recollection differs slightly in detail, I'm certain of one thing. San Jacinto County is home to some of the best people around. It is also home to Bigfoot. Doubt as you may, and I can completely understand the inclination to do so, it is my belief that there is something beyond the pines. I followed the facts. I interviewed and re-interviewed witnesses, trying to come to a logical conclusion. And after hours of study and research from the only thing I can confirm with certainty is that the San Jacinto County is home to something quite unusual. Editor's note, if you have experienced something out of the ordinary within the county, I would love to hear from you. All right, and left her email. And there you go. So I think one thing about that for me is like, well, bravo for you, for this lady, right? She bravely went at this subject with an honest curiosity, didn't automatically blank it out, right? Whoops, didn't automatically blank it out of her head, ignore it, or try to make fun of it. Cool. And then she also added in that she started looking into it big time. So why not? I'm going to, once I get home, I'm going to email her and see if maybe she wants to come on here and have a chit chat with us via me. And let's see what she found out. It sounds like she's a very honest person, and she dug. So, and she's a journalist. It sounds like she's pretty good at it. So I think it might be very interesting to see it would be interesting for me to hear from someone who came upon this truth honestly, and her brain, thank God, fires independently, so she went at this topic and looked into it and tried to figure shit out. So I think it would be interesting if she would. I don't know if we'll find out if she will come on here, explain to us how she came upon the topic, how her brain reacted to that information, what she thought it was in the beginning, and let's see what she has come to at the end of her investigation, unless it's ongoing. It'd be pretty cool to hear from a stranger who has taken this ride that many of us have, meaning becoming aware, thinking, what's going on? Looking into it yourself instead of just looking at some website online for all the answers, right? And see what she came up with, and see how her tone changed, and see if she still uses the word primate. I think that'd be really interesting, right? So I think I'm going to do it. And on that note, too, once I get home, we got to start getting a lot of you on here. I know I've been putting that off. I was going to do it a while back, but obviously my schedule's a little hectic, right? And it's easy for me to get a quick heads up. I'm going to pass on an open message on here, a quick one to Ricardo. Ricardo, I know you're my man, and I got your last email, and I'm going to see about possibly getting you on here with me this Sunday, since you said Sundays are open, all right? Now back to you guys. This is Ricardo. He's got a lot to share. He's seen a lot. He knows a lot. And he dove into this topic. And he's seen some crazy shit. And I think even just as, or more importantly, I think he'd like to shed some light on a man who spent a lot of his life investigating this, got worked over by that popular website scumbag in a bad way. I think he'd like to talk about that. I'm all in. And how other people manipulated, took advantage of this one particular man he was friends with, who knew and saw a lot, not far from where I live. And the man passed away, Robert. And anyways, Ricardo agreed to come on here and talk to me about everything for you guys to listen in on. So that's a quick note to Ricardo. And of course, obviously, I'll email you too when I get home, all right? There you go. Babbling away. What else do you do in the Stan in a hotel near the city for me? Now, while I got you guys here, what do we got here? Let's read an email. It was a long one. Long one. I'm going in. I'm going in and then I'm going to get going. Scared at Bass Lake, California. All right. Revised and finished. 1972 Boy Scout Troop 543 from Southgate, California. Firestone Tire was our sponsor. I was 11 years old, 5'10" tall, with shoulder-length, bushy, dirty blonde hair. Blue eyes the girls liked, and a farmer's tan from wearing a t-shirt all the time and well-worn blue jeans. I got my backpack, my bayonet, and raring to go. Disappeared for 2 weeks at Boy Scouts summer campout. I was away from the cement jungle of Los Angeles basin and into that high-altitude attitude of dusty trails and deep forest where there was awesome fishing, canoeing, and orienteering. That was my focus. Escape was temporary for now. Still put 100% effort into it all. I was alive and free. Still to this day, with everything getting thrown at the world's fan blades, I consider the Sasquatch or forest people or Bigfoot to be an essential part. Countless interactions have been in deep mountain forests, on barren mountain trails and Pacific Coast beaches, and into the Mojave and Colorado River to Havasu Lake areas. I won't mention North Dakota or Nebraska at this time. It seems we seek each other out. As a young, smart-ass scout, and although my fish were stolen off my stringers, and with a few vocal arguments which I've had with an understanding that we scouts packed our foods in, they didn't. But we both agreed that a rainbow trout is a tasty meal, and with much jubilee between us. They'd start hollering, and then stop. And after the echoes, I'd let a yell out, and they would wait for the echo and fire another yell off. One of these moments scared the living shit out of the Boy Scout leader, Mr. Belknap, Belknap, not to mention the rest of the troop. I was walking back with one out of two browns, as the trail began to open back up to the larger scout camp, parade grounds, east, punctuation's gone. I was walking back with one out of two browns, and as the trail began to open back up to the larger scout camp, parade grounds, east of the tents, while just clearing the forest, and they ripped a double vocal yell that was louder than the other three prior. It was both of the younger brothers who would often seek me out. I guess adolescents with the ability to cloak. I couldn't see them at times, so I'd step on a toe. And their father would laugh out loud with his big laugh behind us up in the canopy of the evergreen trees. I'd laugh too. But I sometimes would get mad because it was only ever about the food, transactional and polite. And sometimes I'd come back to camp and then Scoutmaster Mr. Belknap would ask, "John, where's your fish?" My response was, "I don't want to talk about it because they stole from me again." I'd say in a gruff voice, upset. So, So looking forward to trout, pan-fried in butter, which I had purposely wrapped in plastic and foil and froze it for that particular meal. Freeze-dried food is good when you're hungry, but a fresh rainbow along with some fresh leeks and you've got a good meal. Oh, agreed. There's one rule we must all follow, and you don't lie about Sasquatch, forest people, Bigfoot, Yeti, etc. Experiences or the others. Aliens or anything supernatural. You lie about it, it comes and settles up with you. I know something about this. Personal experiences now require personal responsibility because I've seen people lie firsthand and I've seen what happens to them shortly after. It's not fun to watch because I see things you just can't forget. Many of my supernatural connections channel through me and want to remind everyone that you don't lie about those experiences. And therein lies the rub. The rule? What are the rules for theater? The grand expression? Unscheduled medical retirement is unfortunate. Without commercial trees to cut or parts to build, I am left with time to dwell upon what I want to leave behind. These stories are just escaping from the confines I had constructed to quell the shock to other people in society, which teaches to just move on, forget, and what's next? Forget? Why didn't these events just get lost over time? I learned to embrace my fears at a young age. And another example, fast forward while I was standing on an east slope of a high Sierra Mountain trail, age 14, 1975, in the dead of night. Barely any stars and no wind, no sound, and a very large black mass. I compare it to a Volkswagen Bug upside down. Floats through camp, pushing the tops of the tube tents slightly down as it passed over each one, from right to left and out of sight. Just a star scout then, and I was standing there barely making out its mass as I had just climbed out of my tent to pee. I didn't have to pee after that. I just climbed back into my sleeping bag and went back to sleep. I hesitantly laugh about it now. I've never told a soul about this until now. Now, back to Bass Lake and that horrendous experience. The scouts were playing a favorite game of capture the flag amongst the tall trees. I think they were ponderosa because of the scattered large pine cones on top of the carpet of dusty brown pine needles, which were underfoot. If I slid to change direction while running, the ground was dark and moist underneath. We were 2 troops combined with a total of about 15 scouts and 4 to 5 leaders, and most of the scouts were in the game. I had to run the furthest north of the play area, hoping to use the 6-foot round trunks as a visual block and run up on the opposite flank and grab the flag. And just as I cleared a grouping of 3 trees, I looked behind and saw a flash of dark hair just behind me. I ran around one tree to be confronted with a very large black-haired and muscular Sasquatch, which was moving fast towards me as it pushed off of the tree trunks above my head height and began to turn on what speed I could muster, and found myself near the only human-built outhouse in this area of forest. The door on the hinges had been removed, and a 6-foot by 6-foot slated fence panel had been mounted on two 4x4s at either end, shielding the view in front of the doorway. This fence section was old. Many of the 6-inch wide boards were showing rotten knob holes and weathered texture. The bottom was about a foot off the uneven ground, and many of those boards were broken and rotted at the bottom. The beauty side I was approaching from faced the southeast. The beauty side? I still remembered this Sasquatch had a large, squarish head with big dark eyes and big hands reaching for me as I made a diving action towards the bottom of the fence and attempted to crawl under as it grabbed both my ankles above my boots and pulled me back under the fence bottom. I have a 6-inch scar on my lower back where a rotten tooth of splintered board repeatedly scratched me and drew blood. I was clawing at the dirt and pine needles just feet from the commode. I was screaming at the top of my lungs as I continued to fight to get away as it pulled me back under the fence, and it said out loud in a deep, gruff voice, "Keep lying, no go home." I stopped screaming and swore, I'll stop, I'll stop. Almost crying, but now intimidated beyond belief. It repeated, no lie, no lie, with a distinct quip in his voice, and I looked back, moving my head out from under the fence, and he was massive. Had my ankles in his black hair-covered hands, and his broken smile was grotesque. I looked at his chest and swore again, I won't lie anymore about you, I swear, Scout's honor, as I covered my face with both my hands in prayer fashion and began to weep like I just did writing this now, sobbing. I can't believe this happened, and lived to tell about it. He let go of my ankles and stood up as he began to step back to a tree behind him. He pointed his left index finger at me without fully closing his hand. Remember, with a quick chirp. Then he turned and jumped between the trees, and out of sight he went. I laid there with my hands over my face, sobbing and swearing, I'm never lying again about anything. I've been lying about them visiting me in Southgate, which was an absolute lie. I felt the pain from my back and reached back with my right hand and then brought my fingers to my face, and I saw bright red blood. I felt the pin pine needles in my shirt and in my pants legs, and I was covered in a mixture of needles, dry tan dust, and dark brown moist dirt. I sat up with my back to the fence, feeling the rip in my shirt, and began touching the bloody tear on my back. Plain. I sat up with my back to the fence, feeling the rip in my shirt, and again touching the bloody tear in my back, and got to my feet and looked up to the dark canopy in front of me, and noticed him grappling a tree about 30 yards away past two other trees. And I said again out loud so he could hear, I promise. He nodded his head as we continued to just look at each other for a second. I found my feet again and turned away and began to walk downhill towards the south campsite. Walking out of the thick trees and finding the single road to the water's edge, I continued walking and wasn't dusting off, just wiping my eyes and face with my shirt sleeve. My intentions were to jump in the lake and go for a swim with clothes and boots on. My best friend, Jack Eccles, asked me... I don't know why the fire alarm has done this a couple times now. My best friend, Jack Eccles, asked me what was wrong with his twin 1907 Australian bayonet in his right hand. He followed me to the water's edge and watched me slip into the lake over the tree roots and muddy edge. He kept asking me what happened, and my response was, I fell down. I went in up to my waist and felt the load in my pants getting wet. I struggled to take my pants off over my boots and ended up throwing my boots up on the dry land as I washed my jeans out. He asked again, why was I screaming back there? And again I said, I fell down, in a calm voice. As I climbed back out and put my soaking wet jeans back on and sloshing in my boots, we walked side by side uphill to the campsite about 50 yards. The scoutmaster asked me why I was screaming earlier, and again I said I fell down, without explaining anything else. All the scouts were centralized between the tents, and little Lewis, a short Mexican scout, had the front 6-foot-tall faded green squared wood tent pole with its metal spike sticking out of the top in his hand and said, we got your back. And the troop all had some form of weapon in their hands, from the camp axe and pocket knives. I went to my full-size scout canvas tent I shared with Jack and just sat down on the canvas floor and was praying for comfort. Jack guessed it was a Bigfoot, which had me, but he let the tent flap close off sight of me and went back to the group and spoke to the scoutmaster quietly. After I changed my clothes and came out of the tent and hung up my wet clothes on the clothesline between trees behind our tent, I walked up to the scoutmaster and said, I'm sorry, Mr. Belknap, Belknap. I just fell down there. And he smiled a bit and looked at me in my eyes and said, just so I could hear, I know it was a Bigfoot. If you don't want to talk about it, I can understand that, in a calm voice. The rest of that week, I just kept to myself and remembered what the Bigfoot said. No lie, no lie. All right, that's quite the story, man. Experience encounter. I wonder if anybody from the scout troops here, or Mr. Belknap. I wonder, maybe, possibly. I guess we'll find out. Anyway, I'm a little frustrated here with all the planes and now this fire alarm thing going on. Every 30 seconds, it's time for me to get my ass out of here. And I'm going to resume back in the man cave or steelhead fishing, whichever comes first. Share my story how to hunt dog. See? Who knows? Maybe I'm in a burning building. Excuse me. All right, I'm out of here. Share my story how to hunt.com, and I will be back tomorrow. And no interruptions, and back in my home zone. Holy shit.
What is that? Yeah, Bobby.